Salutations, future Twig. Past Twig here once again with another Twig Mittens deck tech. This time it's called Big, Small, I'll Draw Them All. Getting right into things, the inspiration for this again was Yu-Gi-Oh! Nerd 22 leaving a comment on my one of my previous card callouts where I was discussing cards and happened to bring up Eligeth as one of the commander synergies for a particular card. And he was like, hey, really cool idea, interesting commander, what would you do with them? Any fun build ideas? And I've got to say, Eligeth Crossroads Augur, which I'll just go forward one bit, is definitely been a commander I've had my eye on ever since they released back with, like, was the Commander set, Commander Masters, or whatever it was. And it's just a fascinating card because it basically says it's a flying creature with partner, and that if you would scry a number of cards, instead you draw that many cards. So it turns all of those cute little scry effects like Opt from scry one into just draw cards. So it turns everything with scry into cantrips. It's fantastic. Moving on, of course, I was like, okay, that seems like kind of cool. What kind of commanders would I, like a partner commander, would I want with this? I ended up going to Siani, Eye of the Storm. She kind of ties into, I wanted a mono blue deck. She ties in with the flying bit, as well as whenever she attacks, you scry X, which is X is the number of attacking creatures with flying. So these two, as you can see, form a very powerful, very easy synergy. You have a guaranteed play at turn 4, guaranteed play at turn 6, so on and so forth. You kind of see how everything can kind of move together. Now, admittedly, with these are actually quite a popular commander pairing. Actually, the most popular commander pairing for Eligeth in particular, sitting at about rank 1078, a little under 1200 decks, but something I think is going to be very powerful. So I have these commanders, and it's like, okay, so what do I want to do with them? Because, like, what's our plan? And then I had some light bulbs go off in my head, which is, first off, you have a ton of cards, like Mischievous Mystic here being one of the newer ones, which is basically, whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token of flying. And there are a ton of cards like this that basically create 1/1 flying creature tokens when you draw cards or do stuff very similar to what this deck wants to be doing. So what I'm thinking is we do a go wide token strategy, attack off a ton of flyers, and draw a ton of cards, which leads into the second half of this strategy. Oramos, Archive Keeper. If for whatever reason the game's taking forever, what I think we can do is we can basically draw our library, play this down, keep drawing cards and putting a ton of counters on with her, and swinging in for the win. And that's kind of the core of this deck, is basically make a ton of tokens in the mid-game, have a ton of scrying and drawing going on, and then attack with Oramos or other big effects for the win at the end. So with that being our general deck plan, let's break it down to smaller steps. For the early game, we're going to have a lot of smoothers, and I actually learned this while building this deck, that cantrips that draw you a card or two, and also scry, are called smoothers because they help to kind of smooth out your future draws. So cards like Preordain and Serum Visions are fantastic because they allow us to draw cards and scry. So these are fantastic cantrips in the early game to help us make sure our first couple turns go smoothly. And if Eligeth is down and some of our other scry synergies kick off, as you can imagine, we start to draw far more than one card with these little cards. And finally, we had a fantastic card just come out with the Final Fantasy set. First time this card's ever been printed, which is Matoya, Archon Elder, which is whenever you scry or surveil, you just draw a card. So this means even if our commander is not down on the field yet with Eligeth, we can still scry and draw additional cards for the effect of scrying. Fantastic. Moving on from the early game, you have the mid game, which is going to be a lot of ramping and ready. We have some fairly expensive commanders mana-wise, as well as we want to have a lot of tokens and we want to start getting down. So first off, starting off again, we've got stuff like Poo Poo UFO, which basically allows us to take all of these cards we're drawing. We're going to be drawing additional lands, as in with mono blue decks, we have to rely almost entirely on mana rocks. So stuff like Poo Poo UFO allows us to take the extra lands and islands we're drawing and get more of them down onto the field of battle where they're safe, and we can use them to ramp more. Additionally, kind of like with Crashing Drawbridge that I've mentioned in my card call-out videos, it's actually quite helpful to have a defender in the early game that has like 4 health, because it's very hard to remove these kinds of defenders, and it helps prevent a lot of early game aggression from smaller decks. Moving on, we also want ramp in the forms of tokens. So one of the cards I'm so excited to include in this deck is Imrikrul's Messenger. I am still shocked that this card is only like 25 cents. I would think it would be a lot more, because basically whenever you draw your second card each turn, you create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi Spawn creature token. So it synergizes with our token synergies. Eldrazi Spawn do not fly, so they won't help with that, but they can be sacrificed for mana, and then helps us ramp out our higher cost cards, our creatures, our commanders, and other effects as well. And so just having this in there for 2 mana, fantastic drop early on. And even if the tokens themselves that are created don't have flying, the actual card itself, the Fairy Rogue here, does have flying. So it's a fantastic include in this deck. Last but not least, while scrying is awesome, we also just want some ability to draw cards because we're trying to draw our entire library. And we have cards like Transcendent Message here, which is you have to pay for at instant speed, but then you can convoke. So even all of these tokens that maybe can attack or have just come in or whatever the case might be can be tapped down for the convoke cost and can basically start drawing cards automatically, which is awesome. And with all of these tokens and all of these cards that we're drawing and generating, it's time to get into the endgame, which is drawing more cards and damage. So here we're looking at cards like 4C. Usually this is an okay effect. It's kind of average, but obviously that's scry 4, then draw 2 cards when you have your commander down. That's a 6 cards drawn for 4 mana, very mana efficient. Getting on, you also have cards like Ugin's Insight. We run some very high converted mana cost cards in this deck. We're going to be trying to draw our whole deck, so we're going to have them in hand oftentimes, and we can get them onto the field of battle. This is 5 mana where you can scry X, and then you draw 3 cards on top of that. So that can be, well, let's see, if we assume Elegeth is down for the scry, of course, you're looking at 6 plus 3 or 9 cards for 5 mana. So there's a lot you can draw. That's a tenth of your entire deck. And last but not least, just to throw her up here again, we have Oramos. So in the event that all of our little flying tokens and all the scrying and such, in the event we cannot break through our opponent's defenses, we can bring down Oramos. She'll keep us from dying. And more importantly, she can swing in for a massive big final swing to kind of close out the game. Moving on now to honestly my favorite part of the whole presentation are exciting cards that I got to include for this deck, many of them for the very first time, and I'm excited to see how they synergize and work with stuff going forward in this deck. So first off, we have Demon Inferior. This is the first time I've ever seen this particular piece of removal, and it is wonderful because this card costs 1 less for each card we've drawn this turn. So honestly, with our deck, there's a very good chance this is going to cost 2 mana or 1 mana very easily. And it basically states that the owner of target non-land permanent, such as a commander or something else, puts it onto their library second from the top or from the bottom. So it doesn't permanently remove something, but it definitely can shut down somebody's plan for a couple of turns and allow us to potentially mess with them further. Moving on, we also have a legendary land, in fact, and the first time I've ever seen this card from the Lord of the Rings set, which is the Rivendell. Honestly, very powerful effect by default, but especially being able to pay 2 just to scry 2, provided we have a legendary creature. As you can imagine, being able to scry and potentially even draw more cards if Elegeth is down, very powerful effect in this deck. Continuing up with the Lord of the Rings set, because there was a lot of scry-based synergies in that set, we have Elrond, Lord of Rivendell, which whenever he or another creature, such as a creature token, enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1, and if it's the second time this ability has resolved this turn, the ring tempts you. And the ring tempting you basically allows you to have unblockable creatures, with Skulk effectively. It can help you draw cards and discard cards with these like looting style synergies, and so on and so forth. Very powerful include, and very solid when you are trying to make tons of tokens. Speaking of token generation, we have a brand new card from the Aether Drift set, Thopter Fabricator. Never seen this card before, but I think it's very cool. It's a vehicle by default, which is wonderful because that means it dodges creature-based removal, because unless we crew it, it's going to just be there as an artifact. And it's whenever we draw our second card each turn, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So again, we're creating 1/1 flyers very inexpensively. And again, the actual Fabricator itself is a flying vehicle. That's a 4/4, so it also gives us the ability to use some of our smaller tokens to potentially tap them down, crew this vehicle, and have a little bit of a blocker in the event that somebody's attacking us. Moving on again, this card's a bit more of an older one, but a goodie. It's Jace's Sanctum, which is already very good because it's an enchantment that allows you to discount your instants and sorcery spells, which, given we run a ton of instants and sorceries in this deck, very powerful, of course. But the other thing it has is that each of our instants and sorcery spells allow us to automatically scry 1. Powerful by default and pretty solid already, but obviously in this deck, if we have Elegeth down, we're just now saying every single instant and sorcery is also a cantrip in addition to anything else it does. Wonderful. Amazing. Moving on, again, this card's caught me by surprise, and I'm glad I found it. Splashy Spellcaster is a really weird card. This is like 2 cents. Elemental Lizard that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a Sorcerer Roll token, attach it to one other target creature you control. And I did note that you can attach it to tokens, which is fantastic, because Sorcerer Rolls basically state that whenever you equip this to a creature, enchanted creature gets +1/+1, so your 1/1 tokens can become 2/2 tokens. And additionally, whenever those creatures attack, you scry 1. So this basically allows our creatures to also just automatically scry, kind of like an aqueous form on a stick. And so I thought this is a fantastic card to include here. We give all of our tokens, little creature tokens, Sorcerer Roll tokens, so that they can all attack and scry by themselves. We get Elegeth down into all of this, and you're drawing a whole ton of cards. And last but not least, this card doesn't synergize with the scrying, but I think it's important to have some backup plans in the event that there's like a board wipe like Damnation that destroys all creatures. Chasm Skulker basically is a small 1/1 for 3 mana, but whenever you draw a card, you put +1/+1 counters on him. And when he dies, you create a ton of 1/1 Blued Squid creature tokens without flying, for based on the number of 1/1 counters that you put on Chasm Skulker. However, while they do not have flying, these 1/1 squids do have Island Walk. And what's important about that is while this isn't designed to be a game closer, In the event that life totals are low and our opponent that we're fighting against it has islands, this is actually a game-winning card potentially if they wipe the board and then we basically rebuild our board instantly. And even if not, we can throw some Sorcerer World tokens on them, use them with Elrond. There's a lot of options we can have for tokens to use them to power our way through the win. Last but not least is, of course, the deck stats. There's actually a bit of a sideboard with this deck, so I have a couple of cards I've been considering because I'm going to need to fine-tune this deck. So we're sitting probably right around $30 for the deck totally, so it's not bad at all for a monocolored deck. And getting also into it, I will say the mana curve is a bit screwy. I'm going to have to test this deck and see how it plays. Field testing is always required, and I haven't had a chance to fully field test this one. But I think it's a powerful concept, and I'm curious to see how it plays. Very excited to. And that's all I have for this deck tech today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Elegef deck tech and can get some inspiration from it. And let me know in the comments down below, are there any other cards you would include? Did I miss something? Is there a better card out there, or maybe even a better commander to recommend for this strategy? Feel free to leave me some comments and let me know. And otherwise, have a great day, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.